Why did you link this at 28 seconds?
Let me ask about another piece of news here. South Dakota Senator Mike Rounds, as I think you know, was on ABC over the weekend. He spoke about the 2020 election and also referred to the election campaign that is now starting in 2022. Let's listen.
We simply did not win the election as Republicans for the presidency. And if we simply look back and tell our people don't vote because, there's cheating going on, then we're going to put ourselves in a huge disadvantage.
A couple of things to ask about there, Mr. President. Let's start with the politics. Is it a disadvantage for Republicans to keep talking about the 2020 election in 2022?
No, I think it's an advantage because otherwise they're going to do it again in 22 and 24. And Rounds is wrong on that, totally wrong. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the findings in Arizona, if you look at what's going on in Georgia,
they lost everything.
And Wisconsin, by
He's
the way,
delusional.
take a look at Wisconsin. They're finding things that nobody thought possible. This was a corrupt election.
I just have to point out Doug Logan, to name one of the states that you just named. Doug Logan, who ran the audit in Arizona that was set up by your allies, didn't find serious problems. This is a quote: "The ballots that were provided to us to count in the Coliseum very accurately correlate with the official canvass numbers." He raised a bunch of administrative issues, but didn't find a problem that would have changed the result at all.
The ballots may correspond, but look at the ballots themselves. The number of ballots doesn't mean anything. It's who signed the ballots, where did the ballots come from. What you really have to do in that report is look at the findings. And the findings are devastating for Arizona. They're devastating like nobody's seen before. Other states are just as bad.
Why did Republican officials in Arizona accept the results then?
Because they're rhinos, and frankly, a lot of people are questioning that. Why would they? They fought very hard, the Maricopa County people, and people don't understand it because all you have to do is look at the findings. And just so you know, some of those people went before Congress a short while ago, and they were grilled by Congressman Biggs. You ought to take a look at their testimony. They weren't able to answer anything. He made them look like fools. They couldn't answer a thing. They got up and gave a beautiful statement, and then when it came time to ask why this, why that, what about these votes?
In 5 minutes we can, Ram.
What about those votes? They look like total fools.
Let me read you some short quotes. The first is by one of the judges, one of the 10 judges you appointed who ruled on this.
Oh, wait, you guys can't see any of my screen. What the f***?
Was 10 who you appointed. Brett Ludwig, U.S. District Court in Wisconsin, who was nominated by you in 2020. He's on the bench, and he says, quote, "This court allowed the plaintiff the chance to make his case, and he has lost on the merits." Another quote, Corey Langhofer, your own campaign attorney in Arizona, November 12, 2020, quote, "We are not alleging fraud in this lawsuit. We are not alleging anyone stealing the election." And also Rudy Giuliani, your lawyer, November 18, 2020 in Pennsylvania, quote, "This is not a fraud case."
What standard of review should I apply and why? What standard of review should I apply in this case?
On a motion to dismiss? Well, I think the normal one, which is that you have to deem the factual allegations to be correct. And even if they are correct, you have to find that there's no merit, no legal theory on which we can get relief.
Well, let me ask you, are you arguing then that strict scrutiny should apply here?
No, the normal scrutiny should apply. If we had alleged fraud, yes, but this is not a fraud case.
Your own lawyers had no evidence of fraud. They said in court they had no evidence of fraud, and the judges ruled against you every time on the merits.
It was too early to ask for fraud and to talk about fraud. Rudy said that because of the fact it was very early, because that was obviously at a that was a long time ago. The things that have found out have more than bore out what people thought and what people felt and what people found. When you look at Langhofer, I disagree with him as an attorney. I did not think he was a good attorney to hire. I don't know what his game is, but I will just say this. You look at the...
Bro, at what point are you not cringing when you're like surrounding yourself with all these horrible people? How many attorneys and lawyers has this guy said are garbage that he used to trust with so much of his personal stuff? Like Cohen, he doesn't trust. Michael Cohen. What about Rudy Giuliani? He doesn't trust anymore. Like, well, who? Like...
Findings, you look at the number of votes, go into Detroit and just ask yourself, is it true that there are more votes than there are voters? Look at Pennsylvania, look at Philadelphia. Is it true that there were far more votes than there were voters?
It is not true that there were far.
That's a pretty tough thing. That's a pretty tough problem.
It is not true that there were far more votes than voters. There was an early count. I've noticed you've talked about this in rallies.
What? These guys aren't even Debate bros. And I'm a debate bro, and I don't even get to debate the president. This is bullshit. Also, for Pisco and Chad is saying that they the cases weren't about fraud. I'm pretty sure that's because Rudy Giuliani in front of the news was, I think it was like alleging that basically they had proof that they were fake ballots and everything. In front of the news he did that, but when you submit paperwork in court, you can't fucking lie, okay? I can go in front of the news and I can tell whatever fucking story I want, but there's a big difference between what I'm willing to say in front of a camera versus the paperwork I want to submit to a court.
Not a singular voter fraud in one state. This pattern repeats itself in a number of states. Almost exactly the same pattern, which to any experienced investigator, prosecutor, would suggest that there was a plan from a centralized place to execute these various acts of voter fraud, specifically focused on big cities.
Or what I want to tell to a judge. Because when I start lying to a judge, well, now I'm perjuring myself. Now we're in some real shit. So the Giuliani that you saw on TV was making claims that they never dared to file in court because they knew they didn't have the evidence for it. Those 5 million fucking affidavits or whatever bullshit they had, I'm pretty sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of the challenges in court were like things on procedure, or like these people changed a voting thing that they didn't have the authority to do, or there was something that was improper about this. But I don't think they ever, in any of the actual Trump filings, I don't think they ever alleged straight up fraud because they didn't have the cases for it. They couldn't build, they didn't have any evidence for stuff like that.
We had a report that the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic, somewhere in the mid-teens, 2013, 14, whatever, went down to Venezuela for a get-to-know meeting with Maduro so they could demonstrate to Maduro the kind of vote fixing they did for Chavez.
You say the heads of Dominion and Smartmatic?
Yes, that's what I was told. Before the press conference, I was told about it. Sometimes I go and look myself online when stuff comes up. This time I didn't have the time to do it. It's not my job in a fast-moving case to go out and investigate every piece of evidence that's given to me. Otherwise, you're never going to write a story. You never come to a conclusion.
You had the ear of a number of conservative media outlets. Why did you not ask to provide a statement correcting that the misstatement that you had a recording?
That didn't seem to be the material part of the inquiry.
So it would be something like, and I'm making this up, but it would be like, well, in Pennsylvania, they changed it so that they could accept mail-in ballots like 1 week early, and they didn't have a right to do that. Or they made it so that you could mail out ballots to everybody without even requesting them. Like, these were the challenges that they had. Now, when they talked to the media, they said, oh, we're fighting against the fraud in the courts, but fraud in the courts was like, it's like the big dog, little dog meme, basically. Yeah, there were other filings by other parties that alleged fraud. Some people will say all of these were like all the Trump lawsuits, but I think Giuliani, only filed 3 distinct lawsuits with different parties. All the hundreds or whatever other things were filed by other parties, but for Trump and Giuliani, I think there were only 3. And other people, I think, tried to allege fraud, but all of them lost miserably. Every meme video that you saw on the internet was only a clip. Like, one of the most popular ones was the vote box being slid under the table, and they're like, oh, look, they did that not to count him. But apparently when you watch the rest of the video, or so the federal court judges say, who were nominated by Trump, when you watch the rest of the video, it was just like a box was stored somewhere, and then they brought the box out like 4 hours later, and they resumed counting the box. Like, no votes were hidden, or like the box was brought in earlier. It wasn't like some secret bullshit or whatever.
You said reportedly this is true. I think even you know that was an early report that was corrected later.
Well, you take a look at it. You take a look at Detroit. In fact, they even had a hard time getting people to sign off on it because it was so out of balance. They called it out of balance. So you take a look at it. You know the real truth, Steve. And this election was a rigged election.
Why is it that you think that the vast majority of your allies in the United States Senate are not standing behind you? We did have that statement by Mike Rounds.
because Mitch McConnell is a loser. And frankly, Mitch McConnell, if he were on the other side and if Schumer were put in his position, he would have been fighting this like you've never seen before. He would have been fighting this because when you look at it, and this is a long way from over, you take a look at what's going on now in Pennsylvania, take a look at what's going on in Wisconsin. You just take a look. Now, we had a lot of cases where the judges wouldn't hear them. We had a case in Nevada that was so good. When you read the papers, it's impossible. The judge refused to even listen to it. We had many cases. In fact, they say, and I can't testify because it's been through a lot of systems, a lot of different systems, but they say, and they say very strongly, the judges just, nobody's really gotten a chance to look.
I like the careful in the language. Well, I can't testify. No one cares. Okay? One thing that I will tell you guys, okay? This is so important, okay? This is so important, okay? If somebody wants to say some shit, but they're not willing to say it in front of a judge, fuck that person. They're lying, okay? Don't believe them. Don't trust them. Fuck them, okay? Nobody gives a fuck what you have to say unless you want to say it under oath, okay? Fuck that shit.
Look at the United States Supreme Court. They refused to hear the case. And you had, I guess,
they said there was no standing to give the
suing.
case. That's correct.
Well,
Can I
yeah,
just
no
ask?
standing, I know.
Wait, when he says no standing, are they talking about when, I think, Texas tried to sue other states for how they ran their elections? Is that the case they're talking about? That case wasn't even about fraud? Am I referring to the right thing, Pisco? Yeah. So the state of Texas was trying to sue other U.S. states for how they ran their elections. And I think and I think the Supreme Court was, why the fuck do you think standing in a case means, are you a party to something that's happened? Do you have a right to say this, right? So for instance, let's say that Marjorie steals $10 from Joe. I can't take Marjorie to civil claims court and say, I'm suing her on behalf of Joe. Like, well, what's your standing? Well, how are you related to this, right? And I think the Supreme Court, essentially said that Texas doesn't have standing in this case. I don't know why they think that their opinion is irrelevant here, why it matters, basically.
No standing. And the President of the United States supposedly didn't have standing either. So I wanted to file it myself. They said, sir, you don't have standing. I said, wait a minute. I'm the President of the United States. They just rigged an election. Hundreds of thousands of votes in different states. They just rigged an election. We got a number of votes that I think you'll agree no sitting president has ever gotten a number of votes that I got. No sitting
except for
president
Biden.
has ever gotten
A lot of
sitting president. Nobody believes. You think Biden got 80 million votes?
It's true.
I don't believe
it's
it.
true that you got
mean he
more
got
than
him
any
sitting
sitting president
basement?
in the election
He got
you
80?
disputed.
How come he couldn't?
If I can, Mr. President,
Let me ask you this
Losing it,
question.
dude.
How come Biden couldn't attract 20 people for a crowd? How come when he went to speak in different locations, nobody came to watch, but all of a sudden he got 80 million votes? Nobody believes
if you'll forgive
that,
me,
Steve.
maybe because
Nobody
the election
believes
was
that.
about you. If I can just move on to ask, are you telling Republicans in 2022 that they must press your case on the past election in order to get your endorsement? Is that an absolute?
They're going to do whatever they want to do. Whatever they have to do, they're going to do. But the ones that are smart, the ones that know, you take a look at how Carrie Lake is doing, running for governor. She's very big on this issue. She's leading by a lot. People have no idea how big this issue is, and they don't want it to happen again. It shouldn't be allowed to happen, and they don't want it to happen again. And the only way it's not going to happen again is you have to solve the problem of the presidential rigged election of 2020.
Mr. President, if I'm... Wait, one more question. I want to ask about a court hearing yesterday on January 6th. Judge Amit Mehta, he's gone. Okay.
But after now so many months of the vaccine being administered and these side effects and Americans' questions of it, do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it. Because they're gutless. You got to say it.
True.
Whether you had it or not, say it. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. I have had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special. I've had it.
It's something out there.
Why the 180? No. Keep in mind, from Trump's point of view, this is his vaccine. He's not 180ing. It's his vaccine, and he wants credit for it, so it can't be a bad thing, right? Trump has never been anti-vax. This is he considers this to be his vaccine. So of course he's never been anti-vax.
Speaking of Florida shit, like Trump might be afraid of DeSantis. Have you been following any of this shit at all?
Not really. What's going on?
So like,
oh, I saw Trump shit talking DeSantis massively.
Yeah. Like he was flipping out because apparently DeSantis wouldn't say that
the election was stolen or something.
No, that. But more recently, he wouldn't like say if he got the booster.
Trump said that they were lying about it, right?
Yeah, like these fucking Weasley politicians, and everyone's saying, "Oh, it's DeSantis." So I think he's actually somewhat afraid that DeSantis might like run against him. But the thing is, there any way that they wouldn't pick Trump if he was to run again? Like I don't know. What do you think?
Knows? It's hard. I don't know. I'm not trying to make any guesses. 3 years is a long fucking time. Who the fuck knows what'll happen?
Yeah, sure. I'm just. Well, what do you think would happen if it was happening today or like next year?
Trump is an idiot. He'll feel threatened by anybody. So who knows?
I don't think. The only reason I can imagine that Republicans wouldn't want it is the fear that it would motivate Democrats again to get out, where otherwise they probably would just easily lose. Like, for instance, if DeSantis came, I don't think I would give that much of a shit. You know what I mean? I don't think you necessarily, like, I'd still, like, you know, everyone vote Democrat, everything, et cetera. But, like, you wouldn't care with the passion that I think you would if Trump was running, right? Like, Trump's running, that's like a fucking national emergency if you call yourself a Democrat. If fucking, if DeSantis is running, you're like, whatever. You know, it's just going to be another fucking dude, right? I think that's the reason, the only reason that you wouldn't do it. But I don't know if that's counteracted by the fact that, you know, Republicans love Trump, basically.
Yeah.
So how about this 2024 Hillary Clinton run?
No shot. Impossible. It won't happen.
Yeah, but people are like trying to meme it into existence.
Yeah. I also said the same about Trump running though, so who the fuck knows? I don't know why, but apparently
felons can't run, so.
True. Apparently I called Trump running. Well, I say called. I didn't really know. I don't know why I said he would in like 2012 or something. Some old fucking video gets linked to me sometimes when I'm like playing Star.
No, it was because of all his Twitter shit, like bashing Obama constantly, and people are like, why is he doing all this shit on Twitter all the time, like all this birtherism stuff? And people are like, it's probably because he's trying to like develop a platform.
People forget this, and I don't blame them because it's hard to remember all the stupid shit Trump said. But he was like, I think he was the guy that got that birther shit off the ground.
Yeah,
he was like the most credible person that amplified it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He ran in 2000, didn't he? Didn't he try to run on like a third party ticket or something, or was it? I don't think he took it as seriously back then.
One of his policy goals was achieving universal health.
Shut the fuck up, Newton, all right? It's a stupid fucking meme.
Obama?
I mean, like, he's always kind of been, at least socially, like a Democrat, right? Like, he was at like the Clinton's wedding and all that dumb shit, like.
Yeah, but then, you know, once he became president, he had to appease his base, right? So he went all like fucking insane on the LGBT shit.
Yeah. Yeah, because even during the primaries, he was a little bit more socially.
Yeah, that's why all these you had all these centrists who were like, oh, he's not actually going to be that bad when he becomes president, and then like he just pivoted hard right. Like,
yeah, because I remember the most surprising thing was listening to him speak a little favorably about Planned Parenthood, which is impossible for a Republican candidate. It's unfathomable that he had like a slightly favorable thing to say about it, that he like didn't want to remove funding from them, or whatever. I was like, damn.
You talked about Planned Parenthood. Another example, talk about a war on women. Look at the number of abortions they perform every year. $500 million taxpayer money goes to them. You said you would have shut down the government to defund them. You also talked about some of the good things that they do.
They do good things.
Should the taxpayers pay?
Defund having to do with the abortion.
Should taxpayers give, with the debt we have, 128 trillion in unfunded liabilities, should we even give them a penny?
Okay, so look, let's say there's two Planned Parenthoods in a way. You have it as an abortion clinic. Now, that's actually a fairly small part of what they do, but it's a brutal part, and I'm totally against it, and I wouldn't do that. They also, however, service women. And one of the things that I thought was so terrible when Jeb Bush the other day talked, as we said, when he talked about women's health issues, he was so bad. I mean, it's like, what is he doing? We have to help women. A lot of women are helped, so we have to look at the positives also for Planned Parenthood. You know, even a guy like you may be convinced it does some positive things. I would look at it very strongly. We have to help women. As far as the abortion stuff, absolutely.
But if they are doing abortions, then they can allocate their other resources to other things. The government, why should the taxpayers pay for an organization that...
Maybe unless they stop with the abortions, we don't do the funding for the stuff that we want. There are many ways you can do that, Sean, because I'm totally against the abortion aspect of Planned Parenthood, but I've had many women, I've had many Republican conservative women come up and say Planned Parenthood serves a good function other than that one aspect.
But yeah, Trump in office was a different beast.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was going to be more moderate than he was, but he just went full out right-wing memes. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the big meme was always and I even participated in these memes too. It was like, he's about to pivot, guys. He's gonna pivot. I remember there were a few speeches he gave when he was like running. I was like, oh my God, we're seeing the pivot. This is like Trump, the businessman. Like he was playing everybody. He's not actually a total fucking lunatic. Like this is cool. But no, yeah, he wasn't. he was so much worse. So everything was actually so much worse than anything could have ever imagined. That's like the funny part about it. Nobody thought he would be, even the people that hated him, which I did, I hated him always. Even the people that hate him never actually thought he would be as bad as he ended up being. Holy fuck.
Even the people who supported him probably didn't think he was going to go as far right as he did either.
Probably, yeah.